We continue our conversation about guns and specifically about a piece published today, I should say Monday, by the Journal News in New York's Hudson Valley. It's called "The Gun Owner Next Door: What You Don't Know About the Weapons in Your Neighborhood." And it has created a firestorm of controversy and debate. Now, the paper placed dots on maps here of counties that it covers. Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, showing the location, the name and address of registered legal handgun owners. Now, here are the owners, for example, in Westchester County, with so many dots marking gun owners, it's hard to see even the map itself. And here, the next one, Rockland County, neighboring to the north there of Westchester. The paper claims gun ownership info is available to anybody who submits a Freedom of Information request to a county clerk's office. But there is no online registry until the paper published it on Monday. And the paper claims that county officials in its coverage area disagree with their legal analysis and that no one should have access to anyone else's gun info. Reaction, well, as you can imagine, has been pretty plentiful and for the most part, none too happy. Some have taken out their anger on the story's reporter, Dwight Worley, who in the piece revealed that he himself a gun owner. They've since posted his address and even a photo of his home online. Now, among some of the reaction from readers, one letter to the paper saying the only person they can list the gun owners in these counties is because we haven't broken the law. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on the list. Another writing that the paper is trying to sensationalize the anti-gun frenzy and asking how about visiting Mount Vernon or Yonkers and tracking the real danger, which is unlicensed guns, and those are, for people who don't know, two of the more urban cities in Westchester County. Now, as for the paper, one of its responses coming from its editor and vice president of news, quote, we knew the publication of the database would be controversial, but we felt sharing as much information as we could about gun ownership in our area was important in the aftermath of the Newtown shootings. Okay. I start with you, Richard, and I get why they did it. I guess they're trying to advance a debate, but as somebody who's an attorney, you know, when your name gets put in the paper, usually it's not for something good. I've heard from people, forget political persuasions, the first time they opened it up and they saw the names, the first thing they thought of was somebody who's listed in there for a sex offender registry or something else. It had the same look and feel to it. They didn't contend that, I know that. But it just felt that even though there wasn't a legal, there was a reasonable expectation of privacy. If you bought a gun and got a license for it, you weren't going to be in the newspaper. You think when somebody bought a gun, they thought their name was going to be listed in the paper?
There's no reasonable expectation of privacy because it's a public record, which the public has the right to access to. Hold on a second.
They thought when they bought the gun they'd be in the newspaper linking where they live?
The alternative is to allow this to be done in secret. Now, there are privacy issues, human being privacy issues that I get. But this is not a conspiracy or a plot. And by the way, they did it to sell newspapers, which is perfectly legitimate. I mean, that's what the system drives on. But this is not an enormous infringement on the rights of anybody.
You put the word enormous on it. I didn't put it in there. But my point is still, whether I like or don't like, and I happen to think there should be a database, and I happen to think it should be easier to track for the officials and everything else, and I don't think the government's kicking down the door and should take away the gun, so we agree on that. But my point is when somebody bought a gun, and they legally bought a gun, and that they didn't expect here that they'd be in the paper.
There are all kinds of licenses
with their address,
which are in public, group homes, exterminators, locksmiths, lawyers. Those are all public documents.
You're also, political contributions are public information. You can look that up at the FEC or the State Election Department.
Stay on that. Do you find your contribution, if you make one, do you expect that your name and address are going to be put in the paper for doing it?
It certainly can be.
No, can. It's different than, did you think when you did it, you would have had it happen to you?
But it's still public information, and the public has a right to it.
But you got to go to the FEC, and you got to go look it up and everything else.
That's what
home and property sales are public.
They printed it.
Home and property sales are public information and frequently printed in newspapers also, specifically in local newspapers like a Journal News or even more localized. So your name and how much you paid for your house goes into a newspaper after you buy a house.
I'm well aware of this, but my point is a little bit different here.
How is that different?
Well, think about it. Now, I've heard all the people, I don't necessarily buy it, but they say, wait a minute, you're now targeting two things. You're saying to everybody, who's got a gun and you're stigmatizing them for owning a gun that they legally
No
bought.
one's stigmatizing anybody.
Well, you might not feel that way, but again, this is the 47-53%.
It's only stigmatizing if you're opposed to guns. If you have no problem with somebody owning a gun or having your kids around somebody who's got a gun, there's no stigma attached to it.
But now the other argument is, what about the people not listening, the
what about-
neighbors who all of a sudden they say they don't have a gun and now they're concerned about self-protection?
But what about you as a parent? No, now you have a way of finding out, oh, little Susie or little Johnny's going to play at somebody's house who's got a gun. I didn't know that before. I'm concerned about that. Shouldn't you? Isn't that helpful to you?
I get it, and I've heard people say that. Also, people could just pick up the phone and ask the family, by the way, are there guns in your house? Where do you lock them up? Are they unloaded and all the other stuff? How do you feel about this, Don?
I'm with these guys. I feel that if you have nothing to hide, what's the big deal?
Oh, okay. Just remember, that's where you are right now. You got nothing to hide. You got nothing to worry about.
That's
not my argument.
Well, okay, wait, Richard. Babies are dying. What's the big problem? If the guns are lawful, these are public records. We don't get to decide what's public and what's not. The newspaper obtained them through the Freedom of Information Act, which is their right.
Why do they give the addresses too?
So you know where they are. You know where they're in the neighborhood.
You guys don't have any problems about some person followed, crossed all the T's and dotted the I's, did the right thing, and now all of a sudden people are giving their address and name.
The part of the system is that newspapers in America are free to print public records.
I didn't say they don't have a legal right to. I'm saying now this is the spirit of it as well as the letter.
And the spirit of it is that where there is a reasonable controversy, a reasonable issue of public safety, which there is, it's perfectly easy and appropriate to get the data.
In an unscientific way, and you know this, Andrew, because you did the setup to this, in an unscientific reaction to this, I think they said it was going, for every 2,000 negative comments they get 1 or 2 positive ones.
That's not surprising. That's the same thing that happens every time we open up the phones and have a gun conversation. We get more calls, far more calls from gun advocates than we get from gun control advocates. But if there was a business in your neighborhood that was handling hazardous materials, wouldn't you want that information posted publicly or people notified?
It is posted publicly.
That's right. And there are people in your neighborhoods
But now you're connoting illegally purchased firearms with hazardous toxic material.
And we've been saying on the show for some time, any weapon, any gun, any firearm is a potentially hazardous material.
Hazardous material facility in New York is on a map that you can access because I passed a law requiring it to do.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Give him a hand. Give him a hand.
Nah,
Children, come on.
I'm begging you.
Get on the phone and have that person call you back.
We take a break here. We come back. I want to hear your answer to the following question. You want a gun to basically be in your kid's school. Well, we've had the debate that the NRA said it ought to happen right now. The public is divided, and I got to tell you, some schools right now already have it in your area. Should all schools have it? We'll get into that after this.